always got fired. The only question is, where it comes from. Had a nice Shabbos. It cooled off finally. It was been very hot here the last week. 100 degrees, 35, 30, actually 38, 39 Celsius for all you Europeans, Canadians, everywhere else, because America is the only one not on metrics, right? So we're the big losers because we can't figure out things. You have to multiply 9/5 plus 32, right? you know, 9/5 plus 32 in order to, in order to get the right temperature. So anyway, so we are in first chapter. We are in the 13th Mishnah. We sort of didn't really get that far because that's just the way it goes. So the 13th Mishnah is talking about Hillel, that Hillel used to say, he who seeks renown loses reputation, right? We spoke about that. Anyone who's conceited, right, thinks that, I'm going to have this great name, fame, right, etc. Someone who doesn't increase his Torah learning decreases it, right? That's for sure. If you don't learn, obviously you're going to lose out. You're going to decrease your learning. He refuses to teach Torah. Now this is where we're holding. He who refuses to teach Torah deserves death. Right? That's going to have to be clarified. And he who exploits the crown of Torah shall fade away. All right? So we have to see exactly what this means. So someone who does not teach Torah, right, deserves death. Now, not everyone has the merit to teach Torah. Right? In other words, people have people can have intellectual capacity. They can have 150, 200 IQ, can be absolute geniuses, but for some reason don't have the ability to give over to others, right? So if that would be the case, well, if he doesn't teach Torah, he's a loser. He's out. Not only a loser, he's going to die, right? Obviously, that's bad, right? No. So it can't necessarily mean, if he doesn't have the capacity, right? If he doesn't have the capacity, he should get a free pass, right? He should definitely he's not going to get the death penalty. Right? Not everyone has the ability to give over. Right? So it means that one explanation is he doesn't want to teach others what he knows. Right? In other words, he wants to keep the information for himself because what will he be like afterwards? Meaning, if he teaches and he gives over his information, what's going to be left of him? Maybe that's all he knows. Right? I remember there was somebody here in Israel would teach, a piece of Talmud, like whatever, university students, etc. In the same year, every year he would teach the same one. He would teach like the same tractate, right? It could mean that's what he knew best, and it was easier to give over, or that's all he knew, right? So right. Here, if he teaches whatever he teaches, maybe he's nothing left. Maybe he's not going to have anything left to give over because that's all he knows.
Yeah.
Right. It could also mean, now this is where we get into what we said last week, speak about gaiva, about being conceited, and that is that he thinks less of them. I should teach you? Come on. I've been learning for 27 years. I should answer a troll who can't even read Hebrew, you moron? Come on. You got to do better than that. Why should I waste my time? He's only a Facebook rabbi. He only says about the rabbis, right? He only quotes the rabbis because he can't give proof in the Torah. Oh, we're going to see about that. But couldn't a person say that? Couldn't a person said, you know what? You're beneath me to even deal with you, right? Have you ever read the Bible from cover to cover? Have you seen the movie? Probably haven't done either. And all of a sudden, you read an article on Wikipedia. You say, oh, the Noahides, bunch of baloney. It's all made up. Yeah, you think so? Yeah, let's see further. Right? So that means that would be beneath me or beneath the person who says, come on, you guys are a bunch of non-Jews. You don't know very much. Right? You've been lost among the crowd because you questioned what went on in the church. By questioning what went on in the church, you got thrown out. So now you have to re-squeegee your brains to know what the Torah says. So who are you going to learn the Torah from? You have to learn from the rabbi, right? You certainly have to learn from us. You can't learn it on your own. And you certainly, and if you're a Karaite, you can't learn it without commentary because it doesn't make sense, right? A lot of it doesn't make sense. And we'll see, right? We'll get there. But the question's going to be here, okay, if I don't teach, if a person has the ability to teach and they don't, because they say, you know what, you're beneath me. You're a non-Jew. You're not even created the same as me. You don't have the same makeup, right? The same spiritual makeup, right? So if that's the case, why should I waste my time? Why in the world should I waste my time? It's beneath me, right? Someone says that, and they have the ability to give over, and they act conceited, and they act like, oh, I shouldn't have to do it because you're beneath me. They're liable for a death penalty, right? If someone is asking for knowledge, and they're really asking for knowledge, they're not just a joker, but if they're really asking for knowledge, so then a person has the ability to give over. Now, does that mean he has to be able to teach in front of thousands? No, right? Even a person is a businessman, a banker, whatever, he learned in yeshiva, he's got knowledge, right? He could learn with somebody. And what happens? Someone will be afraid and say, what happens if he asks me a question I can't answer? So it's very simple. You can say, listen, I'm not the greatest rabbinical scholar, in the world. I have people to ask, I'll call you back. I'll get you an answer, right? That's not a cop-out. It means that they're admitting that there are things they don't know. But couldn't somebody like that learn with somebody that doesn't really know that much and still give over? They can still do that. They still have that power. You don't have to be a rabbinical scholar to do it. Yeah, question.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate. So, as B'nai Noach, I mean, I've studied scripture most of my life, north of 50 years, but 30 something years as an adult, and yet I still don't read Hebrew. I can reference it and look it up, and I've had the honor of listening to a lot of rabbis. So you're saying that it's clean and clear that if somebody asks, I should share. I should share Torah, share what I know, but never overreach. Is that what you're being clear about?
No, I'm not saying not to overreach, but I'm saying that if a person has knowledge, right? Everybody has a certain level of knowledge. Doesn't mean you necessarily can give over, right? But what it means is even someone who went to yeshiva, and they learned for a number of years, let's say after marriage, and they have certain times they learn during the day, they have knowledge. They certainly have knowledge, right? So, they have these different things, partners in Torah, Ura, in Lakewood, New Jersey, they partner up people who don't know very much with people willing to be mentors, right? They learn 1 hour a week. So a person like that, you don't have to be a rabbinic scholar. Whatever they want to learn, if you have, if you can teach them that, whether it's Chumash, whether it's Talmud, whether it's Jewish philosophy, whatever, whatever ethics, whatever it is, a person has certain knowledge. Right? Now, again, not everyone is gifted. Not everyone is gifted to be able to give it over. But a person can't say, wow, I don't really know very much. How could I give over? People would be very surprised. Right? Certainly, if you learned in yeshiva, you take someone, a secular Jew. Forget a non-Jew. You take a secular Jew, they don't learn very much. They don't know very much. You're miles ahead. Miles ahead. Now, does that mean they can't ask you something that, you may have to look up 100%? Right? That doesn't mean, you're God's gift to the world. You have all this, you have all this knowledge, everything. Doesn't mean that. What it does mean is you have the ability, to give over to someone else. And that is definitely worth something. Now, again, people may be intimidated. People may be afraid or whatever, right? But if they really feel they can't give over, okay, so they may be exempt, right? But what if, if someone has a certain level of knowledge, even if it's a base knowledge, you can always teach someone something. Right? So a person saying, on one hand, he's saying it's beneath me. Right? A second opinion, right, is a person wants to hoard the knowledge for themselves. Right? That is selfishness. Hoard, right? That is selfishness 101 or 101A. In other words, they have the knowledge. And they say it's for me, all three of us, me, myself, and I. Why should I give it to you? Right? Why should I waste my time giving it to you? I have the knowledge. I have the knowledge. But the problem is
power, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's all about ego, right? Because, what does the Mishna say later? Right? We'll say a person's going to say, look at, that a person learned, and you're going to say, where's my reward? You say, what do you mean? That's what you're created to do. Right? You are created to learn. So if you got a lot of wisdom, you have to eat humble pie. You certainly have to be humble because you learned, but that was what you were created to do. So therefore, if I have knowledge, if a person has knowledge, it's not meant to be kept to themselves. right? It should be given over to others. Now, obviously, you have to understand it, right? You have to understand it properly in order to give it over. If you can't explain it to someone else, even in a simplistic way, whatever it is, that means you didn't fully get the message, right? That means you didn't fully understand. So therefore, okay, if it's something like that, it's more complicated. I get it. You're not going to give it over, right? It's much more difficult. But there are plenty of things, plenty of laws, plenty of things in Jewish philosophy, other things, that are relatively easy to give over. And a person, again, we're not talking about road scholars that you're educating. You're talking about people that, can barely read Hebrew, have never read the Bible. They don't know the stories. They don't know the midrashim. Oops, sorry, I mentioned the rabbis again, right? They don't have that knowledge. They don't have this. They don't have this wealth and all. It's going to slip a few times, right? You don't have you don't have all this knowledge, right? They don't have all this knowledge, and you're going to think, what do I have to give over? You have tons. You have tons to give over. The question's going to be, is the person going to want to hear it? Right? Is the person going to be a receptacle to hear it? Right? We say in the Passover Haggadah, there are 4 sons, right? There's a wise son, there's an evil son, right? A simple son, and one who doesn't know how to ask, right? But the evil son asks a similar question to the wise son. The wise son, you give him an answer. You say you can't eat after the Afikomen, right? He says the answer is you can't eat after the Paschal offering, right? The last piece of matzah, right? You give him what the halacha is, and that's it. But the evil son asks a similar question. And what do we say? We blunt his teeth, and we say, had you been in Egypt, you wouldn't have gone out, right? So you ask the $1 million question. Why not give him an answer? Aren't we supposed to draw him close? He says, yeah, you're supposed to draw him close if he's willing to hear the answer, right? If he's willing to hear the answer. If he's got an agenda, he's just going to blast you and say, no, hides are made up and you're made up and all these other things. Okay, that's an agenda, right? You have no intention to listen, right? So I should bother wasting time, to answer an answer. You can't answer an answer, no. Right? So, in that case, you have to see who's asking the question, and you have to see where the question is going, if they're really interested in an answer. If they're not interested in an answer, you blunt his teeth, right? You're not interested. You're not going to give him an answer. It's irrelevant, right? That's a second an explanation. And the third explanation, this is a little more tougher to swallow, but that is, and we don't shy away from controversial things. Third answer is someone who doesn't learn at all. Not someone who has a fixed amount of time. Let's say he only learns half an hour a day. Learn 45 minutes a day, an hour a day, whatever it is. We're not talking about that. Someone who does not learn at all. What's he compared to? He's compared to an animal, right? Because after all, what are they in the world for, right? But to learn, to teach. What do we say before we say Shema Yisrael, right? We say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, right? The Lord, that hero Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Right, and the paragraph before that, we say in the morning, right? We say every morning is Lilmod Lame Lishmor Velasos. We say Lilmod to teach, Lilmod to learn, Lame to teach, right. Lishmor to guard, Lasos to do. Right? So therefore, a person who doesn't learn, right? A person who doesn't learn, what's he here for? To eat steak? What is he here for? Go to the ball games? Can't go to the ball games. No CFL, no NFL, at least at the moment. No baseball, no hockey, no nothing. Right? So what is he here for? Right? So what differentiates us from animals? Very simple. Torah says God breathed in the spirit of life. Right? Torah says that clear. Comes along the Aramaic translation. Right? Aramaic translation says gave us the ability to speak. Well, animals also have the ability to speak. If I was Dr. Doolittle, and I could speak with the animals, I could understand what they say, right? There were people in history understood, the words of the birds, etc. Okay, we're not on that level.
Coco right? The monkey.
Yeah, exactly, right? We're not on that level. So everyone has an animalistic soul, Jew or non-Jew. So Jews have, more than that as well, but we're given the ability to reason. We're given the ability to make decisions. Now, if we don't learn, right? If we don't learn, then we're compared to an animal, right? We're talking about Jews, right? So, one thing people bring up is, hey, doesn't it say the Talmud again, we'll knock down the Talmud here. Doesn't Talmud say a non-Jew is an animal, right? It says a non-Jew is an animal. It's true. It says it. Okay. So what's the context, right? Don't just take it out of context. Say, oh, we say things against non-Jews. We say things against, pedophilia, right? I have a whole video spoke about pedophilia. All these other things the Talmud says. Yeah. If you don't know how to learn and you take it out of context, you don't know what it means, right? So we'll make it easy, right? So it says over here, why they compare it to animals. So I'll ask another question. The Jew doesn't learn Torah. A secular Jew never learns Torah. Is he an animal? Is he compared to an animal even though he's got an uplifted soul? Yes. Why is he called an animal? Right? Why is he called an animal?
Ought to know better.
It's more than that, because Adam, when he was created, what did he call himself? He called himself Adam. What does Adam mean? Adam means he came from the ground, right? The Torah says clear that God took dust, right? Dust, dirt from the four corners of the earth and formed man, right? It's what the Torah tells me. Now, Adam understood he comes from the ground. Very good. He comes from the ground, right? Now, God breathed in the spirit of life. We'll go back to that. That's the soul, right? The soul comes from God's heavenly throne, whatever that means. So we have a soul and a body. The soul and the body fight each other, person's entire life till they die. That's what they do. The soul wants to go after the spiritual. The body wants to go after the physical. Now, the soul is so powerful, it comes from God himself, it should destroy the body, right? According to Kabbalah, it doesn't. Why not? Because it's trapped. It's trapped in the physical. Now, in order for it to shine the way it needs to shine, and the way it should shine is only for the next world. It's only when a person dies, when they are a pure soul. But when they're stuck in the world, and they're in a physical body, how can they shine? They can only shine if you keep according to Torah mitzvahs. Now, what about a non-Jew? A non-Jew's called an animal. You're right. What if they learn Torah? What if they hold according to ethics? What if they keep the Noahide laws? Does that uplift their soul? 100% it uplifts their
100%.
soul. 100%. Does it make them a Jew? Hell no. Different. We have different obligations. 100% different obligations. Someone will tell me, but a non-Jew, if they do anything they're not commanded to, they should get a lot of merit. True. They should get a lot of merit, but it's not compared to what a Jew is. They're going to say, well, it's discrimination. Are Jews and non-Jews the same? Were they created the same? No, because non-Jews did not want to accept the Torah. So anyone who wanted to join Abraham and accept the Torah, God had a lot of compassion. Because basically he said, according to Kabbalah, that only until the Dor HaFlaga, the generation of the dispersion, anyone could still join. But God had mercy. He said, up until the giving of the Torah Mount Sinai. Up until that point, it was sealed. Once Mount Sinai happened, now they have to go through conversion. Good. So now that they have to go through conversion, what happened before that? So a Jew who keeps mitzvahs and does mitzvahs, and a non-Jew who does whatever he has to keep, are they on the same level? They can't be. Now you're going to say that's discrimination? You can call it whatever you want. But the Jew is more elevated because he's got Torah, not because of pedigree. If a Jew acts like a non-Jew, then they're no different than a non-Jew. Then he's also called an animal. We're not going to discriminate, but why is he called an animal? Right? He's called an animal because it comes from the ground. And coming from the ground, that means you're physical. You go after the physical things. If you go after the physical things and not spiritual, then what are you? You're just going after your animalistic side. And everybody has that animalistic side, right? So a Jew is above that in many ways because he's got an uplifted soul, right? A non-Jew, you want that uplifted soul. You want a higher soul. Okay, so you can go through conversion. If you don't want it, you have to start a few pegs lower. And that's the reality because mitzvahs change a person. The mitzvahs for a non-Jew also change them, but again, they don't have the same effect. One example, and I'll take your question in a second. One example is about a non-Jew wants to keep kosher, right? They want to eat clean animals, quote unquote, right? Pure animals. Now, there's only one problem. One of the commentaries tells us that if a non-Jew eats all kinds of garbage, right? He eats bats, eats worms, eats all kinds of things. We see normally it does not affect them, right? It doesn't have effect on them physically or spiritually. By a Jew, we're told you can't eat these things. We're not allowed to eat carnivores because, according to one explanation, we are what we eat, and it affects us. Now, does that mean, I'm going to become more aggressive and start killing people? No, right? But at the same time, even though it hasn't been proved by science, which we don't necessarily care, the idea is that it does have a negative effect. Says the Talmud, again, sorry, I have to quote the rabbis. Talmud tells us that if a Jew eats non-kosher, it makes him insolent, right? It makes him ambivalent. Someone who's ambivalent, in my language, for them to come back to Torah mitzvahs is like starting a Jeep with a 9-volt. The first thing you have to teach someone who's coming back to Torah mitzvahs as a Jew is that they have to start keeping kosher and start keeping Shabbos. Kosher is for the body, for the spiritual side, and Shabbos is because Shabbos represents creation. Shabbos means that God created the world in 6 days and then he stopped creating, right? He created Shabbos. So therefore, God rested, so to speak. And when we say Kiddush Friday night, we say Genesis chapter 2. We say that the beginning, that God finished creating. So when God finished creating, we stand up, we give testimony. Why do you give testimony? Right, sorry, why do we stand up? Because when you give testimony, that's what you do, right? You stand up. You are giving credibility, so to speak, to the fact that God created the world. If God created the world, right, if you deny that, you don't keep Shabbos as a Jew, first of all, you lose your status as a Jew unless you repent, unless you do tshuva. But at the same time, you are saying God's in charge and God created the world. So if you don't keep Shabbos, it's like you deny creation. So you need both. Right, you need to clean out the body, physically and spiritually. Again, even if it hasn't been proven by science, and keeping Shabbos. So one of the commentaries says, by a non-Jew says, I'm going to do that. It's going to make me so spiritual, and I want to be in a higher level. It doesn't affect their soul. If it doesn't affect their soul, then why are they going to do it? Now, God tells us everything we do, right? God gave us a book. Right, wrote it down. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it down. He gave us a book to tell us what's going to be and how we're going to get closer to God. Now, whether we feel it, whether we don't feel it, that's on us. Right, that's on us. But he's telling you it's going to affect your soul in a positive way. But a non-Jew in this case has no effect. It's like a placebo. Now, a non-Jew would say, a super Noahide will say, well, according to the Rambam, I should get married for doing it. Right? Shouldn't I get married for doing it? Could be, but this commentary says if it has no benefit, there's no benefit for them to doing it. So this commentary says, why are you going to do it? There's no benefit. For a Jew, there's a benefit, right? Because it has an effect on the soul. For a non-Jew, it doesn't. Right, again, so they'll say the Rambam. Who cares about the Rambam? It doesn't have any effect. It's not going to affect you in any way. It's not going to be negative like a Jew, but it's not going to, it's like someone wearing a tallis without any strings. It's like wearing a towel, right? It's like wearing an oversized towel. That's it, right? It's, oh, I feel so spiritual. I can't believe no, it's a towel. It's something in your mind. You might really feel something, but that's not it, right? It's something that's fake. Yeah, you wanted to ask something?
Well, yeah, backing it up just a little bit and what you've been going on for the last 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. The best analogy I have heard between, say a B'nai Noach and a legitimate Jewish soul had to do with a military analogy in the sense of being maybe a sergeant or versus an officer. And in many cases, a sergeant is called, especially, in battle, is called to be out there and involved in the front lines and involved in a lot of detail that the officers are aware of and planned and implemented, but the Noahides could be like a sergeant, someone out there implementing it in the sense that they're doing more, it seems, on the ground. Okay, but is it got more in weight? Well, if the battle wasn't planned from above, then it's not going to be of any effect. And we actually see this linked with even some of the animalistic nature in Tanakh. I mean, we know that David, Hamelech, King David, for him being just a man after Hashem's own heart, The reality was he was a man of war, and Hashem did not permit him to build the first temple, but Solomon. And there was a reason, and it was because he was a man of war. And those were
Right.
different times. We're talking 3,000 years ago, and
Right.
yet David was a man that did it all. He was in battle, he did it all, and he was a Jew. But Hashem was teaching even this lesson that you're sharing and elaborating on today. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, there's, no one ever wants to hear, once they come out of idolatry or, whatever. Certainly the Christians, they only believe this quote unquote tongue in cheek. So yeah, you're the chosen nation, but, now you're not chosen. Go look at Jeremiah chapter 30, the Brit Chadashah, right? The new covenant and all that, right? So, the idea that people don't want to hear, is the fact there's a level of subservience, right? In other words, they've been lied to before. Why should this be the truth? Why should we listen to this? Etc. And I want to carve my own path. Well, the Torah doesn't
be my own officer.
Right. The Torah does not allow me to do that. Right? The Torah tells me exactly what I have to do, even if people claim that in Deuteronomy it says you're not allowed to add or subtract to the Torah, which is the famous argument Karaites always give. The rabbis who make fences around the Torah, making a fence around the Torah, not going to get into, right, is not adding. That is just not adding. It's something else, right? Something else entirely, right? But the irony is David, King David's running for his life, his whole life. King Solomon had it easy, right? Relatively easy. But the fact that you're right, he had blood on his hands, it wasn't fitting to build the temple through him, right? Didn't God already know that? Yeah. God did understand that. There is a time you have to go to war. There might, the time you have to fight, right? But also you need people to sit and learn, right? We spoke about that. You need the spiritual side to bring down the heavenly influence that we should be successful, right? It's not going to be, just the work of my hands. There are many times, in modern history, you look at the 6-Day War, and different wars the Israelis have been through. It's not through might that they won. I mean, by the 6-Day War, they were preparing thousands, thousands of people to die. And it was, nothing sheer miraculous, but it wasn't because of what they did. It was like a whole system, a whole thing, a few different events. And, the Egyptians went fleeing for almost no reason, had no reason to flee. But, at the end of the day, there are people in charge. The Jews are the chosen nation. Now, the chosen nation, doesn't mean better. God chose us. We chose him. And what differentiates us from animals, what differentiates us from non-Jews, and this is what the anti-Semites have a lot of fun with, and that is we're different, right? We don't keep the same holidays, right? We're separate, right? Someone told me this, the rabbi's this, you guys are all separate. You guys stay away from secular communities. You're damn right we do. You know why? Because we don't want the influence. We don't want TV. We don't want the way they dress. We don't want the way they speak. We'll stay in our own ghettos because that's what's successful, right? That will not lead us to go astray. There's a lot of power in the secular world. Not say, the religious is so weak. No, we understand. I made this point last week when I lived in South America in Chile. So when I used to go shopping, when I used to go food shopping, there were certain advertisements in the store. Right, I'm not talking huge billboards, but they were big enough. I didn't need my glasses to be able to see. They were pretty large, and a lot of them were pornographic. Right, just immodest women. Whatever. It's like I'm picking my tomatoes, and there's a picture like someone like, you need what do you call it? You need sunglasses, to go there. So the Torah tells me I'm not, in the Shema, it says you're not allowed to go after your heart. Right, you don't have to go astray after your heart, after your thoughts. So they say, well, maybe you shouldn't go shopping. Maybe, right? Maybe I should wear dark sunglasses, be a lot more careful, right? But if someone sees a picture like that, innocently, you're not looking for it. It comes up innocently. Does that make a person think? Makes a person think, unless you're dead or a eunuch. It makes a person think, right? You could have bad thoughts and you can be punished for bad thoughts. You're going to say, oh, come on, you guys are so weak. It's not a question of being weak. God gave us the strongest, desire in the world, but he told us you have to be able to control it. Someone told me once, many years ago, said, if you walk on a beach and you get excited, there's something wrong with you. I said, if you walk on a beach and you don't, then there's something wrong with you. That was, it's a normal reaction.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's tell the truth here. Yeah.
Well, what does the Torah tell me? In many different places, the Torah says, I do not want you to go after this. Right? The whole thing with Bilam, the evil prophet, non-Jewish prophet. How did you finally get the Jews to sin? Immorality. Right? 24,000 Jews were killed. Because, in Midian, where he was, he took all these prostitutes, whatever, and he made them entice the Jews, and they made them bow down to idols before they would sleep with him. God killed 24,000. Right? One thing that God hates 100% is immorality. Right? So therefore, why do we stay in our own communities? As much as possible, because we don't want the outside influence. Right? Now it's very hard. It's very hard living in a consumer world. We're not living in Victorian England. 100%. The way you hear people talk, the way they dress, all kinds of things. A person has to be careful. So you're gonna say, come on, isn't that extreme? Absolutely not. Why is it not extreme? It's not extreme because we have an obligation to guard our souls. We have an obligation to keep our heads on our shoulders, to keep our thoughts the way they should be, the way God wants. So if you see this garbage, it can affect you in a negative way. So why as much as possible the Jewish communities, Orthodox Jewish communities, stay together? That's the reason. That's the reason we live in a ghetto, quote unquote, right? Because you want to have the same values. You want people to dress in a modest way. You don't want any frivolity. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but you don't want it, right? You want to live according to the standard of the Torah. So that's extreme. You can call it extreme. But how in the world are you going to preserve modesty if you live amongst people that aren't modest? Yeah. Now, obviously outside of Israel, right, and outside a few places in America, you are intermingled with other people. They're just,
ultra liberal, yeah.
That's just the way it is, right? They're not living in their own community. They're surrounded by non-Jews, by secular Jews, whatever the case is. I don't think it's a good thing, but okay, that's what it is. So if God wants us to stay together and preserve what we need to do, then we need to be in our own communities. I had somebody, a friend of my in-laws once came to visit. I lived in a different community, and they looked around, and it's all like black hats, long coats, short coats, whatever, white and black, white and blue, whatever. And they look around, and it's like, wow, this is like a ghetto. I said, I know, it's great, isn't it? But that's how you grow spiritually. It's not about, I'm such a wuss, as we'd say in Boston.
Healthy community.
I'm so weak. There's a reality. The impurity out there sticks to you like glue, and it's very hard to get away from. Right? So therefore, we're going to stay in our own enclaves because that's the best way for Jewish survival. Now, anyone who wants to knock that, you can certainly knock it at any level. You want to say it's fanaticism, it's crazy, the rabbi's laws are this and that. Show me a better way of preservation of modesty besides living in a cave. And living in a cave in a monastery is a non-Jewish thing. Yeah, question.
Yeah, Rabbi, I was reading in my own personal readings this week, and I just wanted to mention the way the prophet Amos ends in chapter 9, because this means or this behavior or this practice of what you're talking about the Jewish people, retracting into ghettos or staying, within tight-knit communities. You're telling us about the honor that's in there and the preservation, and that's beautiful. But we know that based on Tanakh, based on what the prophets tell us, I believe it closes out in the end that I will return the captivity of my people Israel, and they shall build the way cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof, and they shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them, and I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be plucked up out of their land, which I have given them, saith the Lord thy God. So beautifully said by the prophet. It's I think we're living in a day and age where you're in your homeland, you're in the land of Israel, and I'm so overjoyed to hear you freely speak, even on a public broadcast. It just shines the light of Torah, and I thank you for preserving yourselves for 2,000 years. It just would hope that you continue to shine because Hashem is with you people.
Amen. As long as we do what we're supposed to do, right? You get 90% of the Jewish people are a bunch of leftists, and don't keep Torah mitzvahs, and their goal is to uproot anything that's Jewish, right? That is their goal. So we have to fight that, as much as possible. But without staying in these parameters, I had a relative sent me an email many years ago, and a little bit disappointed on the track that I took and whatever, and basically I sent an email back saying, no offense taken, just show me a better system that stops intermarriage, right? A better system that stops intermarriage and assimilation. If you find it and it works at least 60% of the time, I'm in, right? We'll talk. I never got an email back from them. That's it. With everything a person wants to say, if it doesn't work, someone, one argument, someone said, well, even if there are 50,000 Karaites, let's say there are in the world, there'll be the remnant. What do you mean? They don't exist. Why is that a foolish argument? It's a foolish argument because you can say, we're going to be the last ones left. You're already dead. You're already a fossil. You haven't done anything for the world. We are much more seen out there. We're much more vocal. If anyone come into contact with so many Karaites that, they're stopping the world, they're doing, they're coming out against abortion, they're saying all these things, to be right wing and whatever, nothing. You don't hear anything. Why don't you hear anything? So in my language, I don't care if they're 50,000. They don't exist. You can say, oh, they stay out of the limelight. They're quiet like the Amish. Do me a favor. Come on, you got to come up with a better argument than that. It means they're dead. It also means they have no backbone, right? Because they're afraid to do anything. And not only that, you go after the majority. We're the majority. The rabbis are the majority, right? So what do you do with that? But that's not even topic for now. Let's go a little bit further. So we talked about an animal, right? So that was one of the attacks. So, non-Jews are animals. Well, Jews are also animals if they don't keep Torah, right? And a non-Jew can uplift themselves spiritually. So over there you can say, oh, it's apologetics. When it comes to them being an animal, it means they don't have Torah mitzvahs. They don't keep any Torah. They're degenerates. They go according to their will, right? According to what their heart says. So what? What's guiding their heart? Their stomach. What's guiding their heart? Whatever they feel like doing. Is that Torah mitzvahs? The Jew says the same thing. You're also in the same category. We're not going to discriminate. But for goodness sakes, if you want to quote something, understand what it means. Don't just throw it out there. Look, the Jews say this. You know why they say it? No, because you can't read Hebrew or Aramaic. But I digress. Let's go further. Person who wants to lead their life hefker, meaning ownerless. They keep to their evil ways. They're not interested in change. They don't exist even for 1 day or for 1 hour. Even if they live, they breathe. Right? If they live their life like an animal, right? That's what they do. No spirituality, no ethics, and whatever ethics they think is just according to their own whims, whatever it is, that means they're not even fit to live.
Wow.
Even if they have a spiritual side to them. It means that spiritual side is so caked in with garbage, right? You need a snorkel in order to breathe.
No.
It means it's dead. It means you're dead. You're just lacking burial. That's what it means. That's what it means to be an animal. So someone who doesn't learn Torah is liable for the death penalty also because he could have been learning. What's he doing? Wasting his time, right? Wasting his time with movies, wasting his time with sports, wasting his time with all kinds of things, right? Whatever it is, he should be learning unless he's exempt, right? There are times you could be exempt, like when you're working. You need to help, your wife or your kids or whatever, right? So there are times where you're not obligated to learn. So therefore, if a person's wasting time, they're wasting, and I guarantee you get upstairs, you're going to be shocked out of your gourd. God says, you could have been something more productive if you were on your phone. You were playing Candy Crush. You were playing Tetris. I don't know, people still play Tetris. People playing Candy Crush. right? Addicted to all these things. Could have been doing something more productive, right? Someone
65
could have been
years old
something
and they still play that.
100%, 100%. So if they now listen to this, according to this, if you waste your time when you could have been learning, it's compared to the negative command of "you shall not murder." It's murder. You're murdering yourself.
Wow.
You
Wow.
you are
Like
murdering
suicide on the
yourself.
installment plan.
Yeah, that's it. Now you're gonna say, come on, this is all rabbinic anyway. So this is rabbinic interpretation. Okay. I'm not saying it's not rabbinic interpretation, but what does it mean to have a life? Does it mean just to live, eat, drink, and eat, drink, and be merry, lest tomorrow I die, fill my body with garbage, with sports, whatever, and just live my life like that? Torah doesn't tell me that. Torah tells me I got to be a moral person. A non-Jew has to be a moral person, right? But if you waste your time, you're an animal. Jew or non-Jew, we're not going to discriminate here. Jew or non-Jew, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, when you do it, then why we created, right? If you're doing what you're supposed to do, then you're the pinnacle of creation. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then you're created after animals. What does that mean? That means you're no better than an animal. Comes on the Rambam. The Rambam says in the laws of killing, right? Hilchos Rotzeach, beginning of chapter 7. The Rambam explains someone who doesn't learn is considered like someone who's dead. Therefore, now, says the Rambam, a student who kills by accident, right? Anybody who kills by accident doesn't apply today, but if someone would kill by accident, where do you go? Do you go to a city of refuge, right? Torah tells me that clear. There are 6 cities of refuge. If you kill by accident, you have to go there because if someone in the family gets you first, they could kill you. If you killed somebody, by accident. So it comes on the Rambam and says a student, someone who's learning, and he kills by accident, whatever he did, he goes into the city of refuge. Who has to go with him? It's Rebbe, right? Talmud tells me, Talmud tells me his Rebbe has to go with him. Why? Because he's got an obligation to learn. And if he's got an obligation to learn, he needs someone to teach him, even if he killed by accident. Now, this is even compared. We'll take it one step further. We're talking about murder. See, this is why, another reason, what does the Torah tell me? That it's brought down, well, I'll say better because I don't want to get misquoted here. Right? The Talmud tells me there are 7 Noahide laws. Right? Someone pointed out it's not in the Torah. You're right. Right? The Talmud brings down 7 Noahide laws. It's just an umbrella. They're more than 60, almost 70, whatever it is. One of them is you're not allowed to murder. Now, if I was looking at the Torah literally, what in the world does that mean? If you kill in self-defense, someone's attacking you, and you kill them, is that murder? Sounds like murder, isn't it?
Sorry, Rabbi, I was reading online. I missed the question. Could you repeat it?
The question is that the Noahide laws, right? The Talmud brings down, right? We're not going to say the Torah. The Talmud brings down the Noahide laws. One of them is don't murder, right? Now the question is, what's the definition? Torah doesn't give me a definition. Torah says don't murder.
Does that mean war?
Does that mean war? Does that mean war? Does that mean in self-defense? Right? Does that mean someone who's a ghost ace? A ghost ace means someone's about to die. Right? We know in the next minute, 30 seconds, they are going to die. What if you close their eyes? You close their eyes and you hasten their death.
Yeah, pull the plug.
Yeah, pull the plug. So shortening by the life, even by a second, is called murder. Right? That's called murder. Now, right, all you Karaites out there, give me a definition of what murder is. In your own words. Torah doesn't tell me. If the Torah doesn't tell me, then how can I get the death penalty for killing somebody if I don't know what the definition is?
Exactly.
The Torah doesn't give me a definition. Right? If I act in self-defense, it's not fair. Hey, what are you killing me for? What's this quicksand? It's over. You're dead. But you're going to say that's not fair. I didn't know. I wasn't given that information. Now, if God is just and God is good and we know that he is, so he's not going to kill somebody if he didn't know what he was doing. He can't say, well, you're not allowed to murder. I got a question. Yep, Johnny in the back. Got a question? Yeah, I got a question. Yeah, Johnny, what's the question? Well, what about self-defense? What about euthanasia?
Car
I pulled
accident.
the plug. Car crash. Does that apply or does it? Well, golly gee, says Gomer Pyle. Golly gee, I don't know. I don't have an answer. You know why I don't have an answer? Because Torah doesn't tell me. Torah doesn't give me a definition. So now I'll ask you the $1 million question. If the Torah doesn't give me a definition, how could God kill you? How could he say you're liable for a death penalty? And a non-Jew, anytime they sin against the Noahide laws, they're liable for a death penalty. Okay, that's rabbinic. Good. But if they murder someone, right, by accident, I don't care. You're dead. But that's not fair. God doesn't make a not fair world. Right? So over here, what happens? What happens? You shorten someone's life. You shut their eyes. What happens? It's as if, not the same. It's as if they could have learned and they didn't. They shortened their life because that's what they're created to do. What did they do? Slow suicide. Now, I'll show you how important life is. It's a famous story with the Chavetz Chaim. Chavetz Chaim, Risrov Meir Kagan, a Kohen, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, most righteous of the last generation, wrote the Mishnah Brura, the laws of Lashon Hara, right? The head of his yeshiva in Radin, Rav Naftali Trupp, big Adam Gadol, a very big righteous person, was sick. So the students of Radin in the yeshiva wanted to donate time from their learning. They say this is going to be for his refuah shlema, that he should get better. In other words, the learning I do should go in merit of his getting better. Right? So people divided up how much time they were going to learn, how much of their time that they were going to learn is going to go to his, for him to get better. So they asked the Chavetz Chaim if he wanted to join. The Chavetz Chaim agreed. The Chavetz Chaim said, I am willing to dedicate 1 minute. 1 minute of his
Participate.
learning. Right? His 1 minute, he says, this is going to go to help Rav Naftali Trupp get better. And he said, I'm going to do it for 1 minute. Now, people were astonished. So what do you mean 1 minute? How can you only give 1 minute? Look at how much your Torah is worth. Those close to the Chavetz Chaim asked him. They asked him this question. And the Chavetz Chaim answered. He said, I want to tell you how precious 1 minute is. 1 minute of learning, just saying the words. How many words can I say in a minute? 200, right? 300, 350, whatever it is. So all those words that he said went, 350 mitzvahs, right? Each word is a mitzvah. Right? So you see, 1 minute of life, 1 minute of learning. So, we think, life's going to be forever, and different things people don't understand. As the Chavetz Chaim used to say, people think time is money. He said, no, life is money. Right? Life in this world, he said time is life. Got it wrong. Right? Some people say time is money. He said time is life. Because either I'm going up or I'm going down. Right? Either I'm learning or I'm not. And if I'm exempt, I'm exempt. If not, whatever the case is. Right? But if you're not learning when you could and you're wasting time, that's akin to death. Now, you're going to tell me, is that really murder? Not really murder. Right? But you're going to pay a terrible price for the fact that you're wasting time. It is akin to murder, right? Some of you embarrass somebody in public. Give another example. Actually, one of my kids asked me this today, that if you embarrass someone in public, you're liable for a death penalty. It's murder. It's considered murder. Why? Why is it considered murder? You embarrass someone, First they turn white, and then they turn red. When they turn red, it's embarrassment. Red is blood, right? So it's an offshoot of murder. Is it really murder? No. It's not. It's not murder. It's not like you took a gun and killed someone. It's similar, right? It's similar enough to make the point, do not embarrass someone in public. Yeah. Comes along Chaim of Volozhin. Chaim of Volozhin, famous student of the Vilna Gaon, right, wrote an epic work, Nefesh HaChaim, the soul of life. Most people learn the fourth gate. It's all about the importance of learning Torah. And he would speak before a big audience first day of Slichos. Slichos is usually in September or the end of August, or whatever, early September, depends on what it is. Before Rosh Hashanah, you say penitential prayers during the month of Elul, basically make you feel like a piece of dirt getting ready for judgment. So when he would speak the first day, usually, great rabbis get up and speak to, fire up the masses, so to speak. So he would speak with great tears. He would awaken the audience by saying that everyone's sure that they have a portion of the world to come. Because doesn't the beginning of every chapter, Pirkei Avos, we didn't even discuss it, right? But the beginning of every chapter says every Jew has a portion in the world to come. Now, he didn't continue the Mishnah. Because the Mishnah then speaks of someone who doesn't have a place in the world to come. Right? I've gotten people say, so I'll just have a smaller portion of the world to come. No. These are people who don't get a portion. Yeah, but doesn't it say every Jew has a portion? Well, he could also lose it. Right? But he didn't want to continue with the rest of the Mishnah. Right? Because that includes heretics. And the Talmud explains, what does it mean? Someone's not going to have a portion of the world to come. Again, this is pretty harsh. And that is someone who could have learned Torah and did not. Right? They are in the same category as heretics. They are in the same category as people who don't believe, that all the prophets, spoke in the name of God. Those are the same people that say, I believe everything the Torah is true except one verse. Right? Somebody who had an opportunity to learn and they didn't learn. It's pretty harsh. It's pretty harsh. It says that you don't have a portion of the world to come. Now, isn't God going to cut us some slack? Doesn't God know where we're holding and what we're going through? And come on, we've been stuck at home, it's Corona thing and all that. God doesn't care. He's saying you got an obligation to me at all times. Times that you're exempt, I'm not going to get you on. Times that you're 100% exempt is nothing to talk about. So we see from here, even someone who wastes even a second from learning, has the status of a heretic. They lose their portion of the world to come. Yeah.
I got a question here from Sandra.
Yeah.
She's new on the page, and she says, "Wait."
Yeah.
She says the learning counts for or just for the Jewish person, right? She says not the non-Jew or Noahide, or does it benefit non-Jewish too? I did reply to her that according to this Mishnah, a Jew must learn. A Noahide is not under the must, but should, according to reason.
A Noahide should learn the laws that apply to them. 100% it should apply to them. Now, do they have a mitzvah to learn every single day of every single second? No, that's only for a Jew. They're not in the same level. They're not in the same category.
But Rabbi, nothing eats at me more than when when my time is wasted, and I love how you touched on that.
Well, I could talk a lot more about your wasting time, but I don't want to embarrass you.
I'm sorry I interjected. I shouldn't. Rabbi, sorry, you got the floor, sir.
Should have kept that to yourself. All right, let's speak about Dan now. No, but the thing is, by non-Jews, now I wouldn't even say, a lot of times I will say a non-Jew is not obligated in many things, but as a moral imperative, it's something they should do. Lashon Hara doesn't apply to them. Right? It really doesn't apply to them. But everyone will agree, even though the rest of the world does it, everyone will agree that it's not a good thing. Right? Cursing. Not a good thing, right? Do they have an obligation not to curse? Does it come under any of the Noahide laws? Seemingly not, right? Is it a good thing for them not to curse? It's a moral imperative, right? It's definitely a moral imperative. So the learning in that aspect does not affect a non-Jew as a Jew. Now, a non-Jew gets upstairs after 120 years. God, what's a Jew going to get asked? Were you honest in business? Did you learn Torah? Right? Either way, it's a contradiction. Which comes first? Doesn't really matter. Right? A non-Jew is only going to ask, did you keep my laws that I obligated you to keep? I'm not going to ask you if you learned Torah. Right? Learning Torah is not for a non-Jew. Now, they have to know what they need to do. Right? They certainly, they're not going to figure this out on their own. Right? They're certainly not going to figure it out on their own. So they have to learn. They have to get someone to teach them or go online or whatever the case is. They have to get that information. So, okay. Now, is it a good thing that they should spend, quite a bit of time learning than wasting time? Sure. Is it an obligation that they're going to fry in hell and it's going to be called murder for them? Why should that apply? Right? That, for a woman, it's not going to apply either because she has different obligations, right? For a Jewish woman, right? If she wants to learn, she can. She should live inspired. Does she have the same obligation as a man? Certainly not, right? Definitely doesn't. She has different obligations. Now, even if that's the case, okay, she wants to learn, she can. She doesn't, she has that option, right? But she should also want to go in the same direction, etc. A non-Jew doesn't have that obligation, but they still have to learn what they need to do, right? And I think the more that they would learn, and the more that they would see, they'd want to learn a lot more and realize how much time that they're wasting. But it would be very, very hard, very, very hard, if not impossible, to say, a non-Jew is going to be at that same level and going to get slaughtered for that. They don't even know. Most non-Jews out there, have no idea. I have no idea about, the Noahide laws and what applies, what doesn't apply, what they're supposed to do. You're going to tell them that to learn 9 hours a day? Forget it. Right? It's game over. But they do have to know what they need to do. And there's plenty of work for them to learn. And certainly they could elevate themselves by learning Jewish ethics, by learning Musar, right? By learning ethics, and learning the Torah and what the Torah says, etc. Plenty of things for them to learn. They're not going to get slaughtered. They are not going to get slaughtered, if they had an opportunity to learn, they did it. Now, obviously, they have things they need to keep, and they need to do that. And they need to keep whatever they need to keep at the highest level, whatever level, whatever level it is. So, if they're busy playing Tetris or Candy Crush, is that going to be held against them? It's not going to be held against them, right? They don't have an obligation to learn. Question is, they're just wasting their minds, right? They could have watched plenty of YouTube videos. They could have learned on their own. They could, start amassing a library, and learning and getting inspired and learning, and doing what they need to do. But to say they're gonna fry in hell forever and they don't lose their portion of the world to come, very hard to say. Definitely very hard to say. Let's finish this up, and then we have a surprise at the end, right? So the last part of the Mishnah is, what does it mean that he who exploits the crown of Torah will fade away? Now, some tell us it means shouldn't trample on your students, shouldn't use them, right, in any way, right? And I remember once helping my Rebbe put on his coat, and he pushed me aside. He pushed me aside. Said, what? I'm going to use a Talmud Chacham. I'm going to use a rabbinic scholar to help me put on my coat. I'm like, okay, put on yourself. You don't want my help? Okay, I won't help you, right? You don't want my help, right? So that's what he said. In other words, he felt it was a disgrace, to use someone who learns Torah to help him, right? That's one way of looking at it. Others explain, what does it mean to exploit the crown of Torah, right? It means not to use God's name, i.e. the Tetragrammaton, right? Famous name of God. And if you do, you forfeit your life.
Wow.
Now, this is to show the importance of treating the name with utmost respect. Now, there are some groups out there, I forget what they call themselves, that the whole time, what are they trying to do? Say the 72-letter name of God and how to pronounce it, I don't know. It's like, okay, you enjoy that. You want to like change the world and have power over angels and
Yeah, wear it
whatever.
as a T-shirt.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, all right. It's like reading Russian backwards if you don't speak Russian. Like, like, come on. You can't even. There are no vowels. All right, maybe there are a few vowels. I don't know. Maybe there are a few vowels in this tetragrammaton, but I don't know what they're wasting their time all day doing. Whatever it is. But that's the importance. That's the respect we have to have in treating God's name, right? We can't, if someone, let's say, someone makes a blessing, right? They made a blessing that they didn't make the right blessing, but the blessing they made was valid. It was a valid blessing. They just didn't say it in the optimal way. So they say, let me go back and fix it. Well, you're not allowed to go back and fix it because you fulfilled your obligation. Okay. You got a C minus, but you can't go up to an A. You blew it. That's it. You fulfill your obligation. No, but let me do it better. But we don't go around saying God's name, right, for no reason. Spoke about this, did one show on it, on Tanakh Talk about it. And, so people were saying, oh, it's a superstition. It's more than a superstition, right? There were times that there was a great rabbi right before the destruction of the temple that, had a soul go up to heaven in front of the heavenly court, wanted to use a certain name of God to stop the destruction. So even if you use it for a mitzvah, you could be forfeiting your life, because that is, that's the importance of, not taking God's name in vain or even using it for the sake of a mitzvah to save lives. Regardless of that, he was told in explicit terms, you're not allowed to. This is the decree, and that's what's going to happen. They slap the soul back in his body, and that's the destruction, right? And the destruction occurred, right? So we may think, oh, I want to fix it up like this. I want to fix it up like that. But I'm not allowed to say.
Could be adding.
I'm not allowed. It's not adding, but you're not allowed to say God's name for no reason. People think, oh, so what's the big deal? So I'm fixing it up. People don't understand the severity of what it means to say God's name, right? What it means to make a blessing in vain, right? A blessing in vain, by the way, anyone, is interested, one of the 10 commandments. You're not allowed to take God's name in vain. That means making a blessing I shouldn't have made, right? Or adding to something, adding God's name where I didn't need to, where I should not have done it. I mean, it's a pretty severe transgression, and we're sort of flippant about it. Say, oh, let me do this, let me do that. You say God's name, but you have no intention, right? Forget about Kabbalah. You just, you spit out the name, you say things, whatever it is, and you're not cognizant. You're not cognizant of what you're doing. And the problem is that you're 100% playing with fire, right? As it is brought down, in the code of Jewish law, even for the sake of a mitzvah, you don't do it, right? Even if you know what you're doing, even if you're very righteous, right? Using names to tune into the, let's say the dark side, what I'll call the dark side, that anybody can do. Right, that you don't need any real special training. You just you have to know what the mantra is. You have to know what to say, and then you could, have certain power over angels and other things. But that's forbidden, right? That's using sorcery and other things, and it's certainly forbidden. Certainly should be forbidden, for a non-Jew as well. But not only that, by tapping into that, you're also 100%. You're absolutely 100% playing with fire, and that is not. That is not something in any way, shape, or form, that you want to mess with.
Stay away from. Yeah, we need to stay away.
Yeah, even for a non-Jew, even though it looks fun and people use Ouija boards and other things. I mean, these things are very real. Again, as long as you know what you're doing. It's certainly not the topic for now, but there are many stories I heard from people themselves that did it, not just, I heard it third hand, heard it fifth hand, whatever it is, heard it from the people that themselves did it and, almost forfeited their life or, forfeited the life of other people, going through exactly, whatever they did. So the Torah in many places says sorcery is forbidden, right? And you're playing with things that may look like a lot of fun and may give you certain power and different things, but at the same time, you might as well just put something in your mouth, a little bit of lighter fluid, light a match. That's exactly what you're doing. You are, you are playing with your life. You're playing with, it could be other people's lives, etc. And even if you're given, information from that, spiritual world or whatever, God says you're not allowed to look to the future, right? You're not allowed to use these things to look to the future. Astrology, if you knew what you were doing, not these, what do you call it? What do you call it? They have in the paper. They have in the newspapers. They have horoscopes or whatever, right? So that's, so those mean nothing, right? If someone knew like real astrology, knew how like they could try and look at the future by the way the stars are set up or whatever, that's forbidden, right? That, the whole question, not only that, about like relying on signs. Like there's a story by Eliezer, right? Abraham's master of his house, that he said, if I'm looking for a wife, Abraham told him to look for a wife for Yitzchak, right, for Isaac. So he says if she does this and she does that, then I know she'll be the right one, right? So everyone asks, he's relying on a sign. You're not allowed to rely on a sign, right? In other words, if a person dropped a piece of bread out of his mouth and he says, if this happened, then I'm gonna have bad luck, or he sees a black cat, or he walks underneath a ladder, right? Breaks a mirror, 7 years bad luck, it's hogwash, right? All of it is hogwash. You're not allowed to give that any credibility. So they ask about Eliezer, and they say, so how could he do it? Even if he didn't keep the Torah, whatever, Torah wasn't given, how could he have done it? Right? So the commentaries say he could have. What did he really do? He didn't rely on 100%. Right? In other words, he said, I want someone of these character traits. But he wasn't saying, if she does this, then I know for sure. Right? Even though that's the way it looks in the language, right? So some of the commentaries say that wasn't his intention. Right? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what about the question of Gideon and the fleece?
Yeah, what about it?
Was that not searching for a sign?
Don't know. Have to see. Have to see. But again, relying on that 100%, is going to be forbidden. I mean, there are a lot of miracles happen at Eliezer, no question. No question about that. I mean, take a 3-year-old girl, even though, she could have been well endowed or whatever, and she filled up water, even if the water came up, and she fed 10 camels, right? You know how much 10 camels can drink? 100 liters more, and even if she's well endowed at the age of 10, or 11, I have an 8-year-old son. He couldn't have done that. He would have been tired after the first couple of buckets. That's it, but there are a lot of miracles there, right? When, and Eliezer understood from that also she was the right one. And then when she meets Yitzchak and he takes her back to his mother's tent, there were certain things that returned from his mother that showed that she was definitely the right one. But again, relying on it 100%, yeah, that's going to be forbidden. That's definitely forbidden. The thing with Gideon, I have to look into, right? But if it's relied on 100%, you're going to say, if this happens, then whatever. Yeah, that should be an issue. That should definitely be an issue. There's got to be something else, something else going on there.
Excellent.
So that pretty much concludes the Mishnah. Again, there's a lot to say. There is a lot to say about the idea of going after our animalistic side. Right? And everybody does it. Everybody does it, especially in the secular world. They go, what does the Mishnah in Pirkei? Yeah, what does the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos say later? Anyone who's truly free is the one who learns Torah. Right? Now, someone who doesn't learn Torah, what does that mean? It means they're an animal. Basically, because they're going after base desires. When you go after base desires, you'll kill for that, potentially. You'll do whatever it takes because you desire something. Now, you'll say, I'm not going to act on it because if I do, I'll get caught. And if I get caught, this will happen or that'll happen. Okay, there are deterrents, right? But there are people that do not have a rudder. They do not have a lifeline to spirituality. And
Yeah.
if they don't have a lifeline, they'll do whatever their hearts tell them. And pulling the plug on somebody, they'll say it's not murder. I'm saving them, right? That's mercy because they're suffering. But again, who has the right to give life or take life, right? And that's God Himself. No one else has that right. Now, the people do it. Does God allow it? Right? God doesn't stop them, right? Maybe some people He does, some people He doesn't, right? Yeah, one second. Whatever He does, But in the end, right? 100% is forbidden, but they have no idea what they're doing. Yeah, question.
Well, the question just along that lines of that point about people without a rudder. I mean, we where I am in British Columbia, Canada, I mean, we have a bit of a like drug crisis. I hate to
Mm-hmm.
say it, like fentanyl and
Mm-hmm.
just needle freaks. It's terrible, and I know it goes on in many other places. Uh, but we just see this animal baseless, reckless, harmful behavior that to the point where there's tent cities, people, just living in some horrible squalor in certain areas and pockets. And all I can say is what you're saying is to the average person in the way the evil inclination can get the better of us. And we have examples like that of how lives just are ruined if they let that baser
Right.
instinct guide them.
One thing is that we certainly believe God doesn't put a person in a situation they can't handle. Now, we may think we can. People go through all kinds of difficult times, et cetera. And people go through trauma, and if that's the case, they need help, right? They'll definitely need help. That's not saying they're a wuss. I mean, they went through a hard time. They went through a very difficult time for whatever reason God wanted them to go through it, right? But, once a person gets caught up in peer pressure and other things, and they don't have a guide, they don't have a rudder, as you said, they don't have a boat.
Like
So
internet trolls?
Yeah. They got nothing better to do, right? So, so in the end, they're just, what do? They just go on whatever their desires tell them, right? And obviously, in many ways, in many ways, it's not good. Now, you can't say, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to think of it myself or whatever. No man's an island, right? You need backup. You definitely need backup. Now again, these laws, these Mishnayos, you're right, it's oral law. 100% it's oral law, it's ethics, right? It's teaching us how we can become better, right? 100%. And fortunately or unfortunately, who gave us these laws? They're the part of the Mishnah, right? Who came up with the Mishnah? The Mishnah is a commentary on the Torah, right? The Gemara is the commentary on the Mishnah. The Mishnah and the Gemara make up what we call the Talmud, right? It's pretty clear. So people will claim, they've had some trolls claim, they say, well, the rabbis add, the rabbis subtract, right? The rabbis do all kinds of things. Well, I want to look at one thing. I'm going to go more in detail few days. Torah tells me, Deuteronomy chapter 17. Now, someone, let's make clear. Any translation, King James himself, or any translation, whatever translation's out there, the translation, if you look at a Sefer Torah does not have vowels. If it doesn't have vowels, you and not anyone out there, unless you're like some genius that you've learned Torah before, is ever going to be able to read it. Because there are no vowels. Now, if there are no vowels, how do you read it? You can't read it unless you've been schooled in it, right? So most people don't know Hebrew. You won't be able to make heads or tails of it. Now, anybody who's going to tell you, and they're lying, but anyone who's going to tell you the rabbi's this, the rabbi's that, I'm not going to listen to them, right? Whenever they're men. The Rambam was a man. I'm not going to listen to him, and I don't have to listen to the rabbis. And you guys are a bunch of liars. Okay. Answer me one question. Without vowels in the text, how would you read it? How would you translate it? Any translation, what's it based on? It's based on the Masoretic text. So anybody who knows anything knows Who put the vowels in the Masoretic text? The rabbis. So now, admit to me that I'm not going to follow the rabbis, but I'll rely on them to have a translation. If you admit that, I won't have too much to say. Fine, you'll pick and choose. Just tell me you're going to pick and choose. So then there's a famous claim. There's a famous claim that, the rabbis have no right to interpret. It says Deuteronomy. And I had someone bring me a really bad translation. Right? Dan, you saw it. Look at the translation and look what I'm going to read. What this bozo
Chapter 17?
Chapter 17, verse 11. I'm going to read chapter 10. I'm going to read verse 10, sorry. And then verse 11. It says, you shall do according to the word that they will tell you. Right? From that place that Hashem will choose. Talking about the Levites, the Kohanim. And you will be careful to do according to everything they will teach you. Let's be a Karaite. Everything they teach you. Verse 11, according to the teachings they will teach you, according to the judgments they will say to you, you shall not deviate from the word that they tell you right or left. Now someone gave me a really bad translation. The way that it was interpreted, I would have been stoned and drunk and everything in between. Be sniffing methanol, whatever it is. Methanol, whatever it is. Right? So you came with a really bad translation. You probably can't read Hebrew. Right? I'm not even going to give you that credibility. But you probably can't even do that. So someone else tried to come up with some definition of what this means. Now that doesn't make any sense. Because it tells me clear. You have to listen to what the Kohanim say in every generation. What does every generation mean? It means you listen to what they say. That's it. Who are the Kohanim? The teachers. Who are the teachers? The rabbis. Fine. You want to bring me a crummy translation? You want to tell me that's not what it means? It only means biblical things. You got to do better than that. But I want to use one more thing, because I'm gonna use a lot more on Tanakh talk. But one more thing that I think sheds a little bit light here. Everybody's big, the Jews and the non-Jews, meaning the Christians, about King David. Now, the non-Jews, according to the Gospels, what do they want to do? They want to say that JC, that's what I'm going to call him, right? Mr. JC has a Davidic line, right? He goes way back to King David. Now, there's only one problem. The problem is that if you look at the different Gospels, they have different way to get to King David. That is a historical inaccuracy. If you tell me the father of that one, the father of that one, they're all the same, and they go back the same, that's good. I don't have a question. If they have different people they go to, there's a problem in the lineage. But to give JC legitimacy, they claim he has to be from the line of David. Now, comes along the book of Ruth. Book of Ruth that we read on Shavuos. The book of Ruth at the very end of the book of Ruth, what does it do? It gives the genealogy. The genealogy of who Ruth was and who her kids were and her grandkids, great-grandkids, great-grandkids. Who's the fifth generation that comes out of Ruth? Who's the fifth generation? It's King David himself. Now, you look at the book of Ruth, what does it tell us at the very beginning? Who is Ruth? A Moabite. Ruth is a Moabite, whether she's a daughter, the granddaughter of the king of Moab, doesn't matter. She, 100%, genealogy-wise, she's a Moabite. If she's a Moabite, I got a question. King David comes from her. Says Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 4. You can look it up, any translation. Deuteronomy 23, verse 4 says, an Ammonite or a Moabite. She is a Moabite, right? The book of Ruth says she's a Moabite. She and Orpah came from Moab. It says a Moabite or an Ammonite, or I'll read it better, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the congregation of Hashem even the 10th generation shall not enter the congregation of Hashem to eternity. What does that mean? Very simple. A Moabite never becomes a Jew. Ever. 10 generations, eternity. A Moabite can never convert. Ruth is clear, is not a Jew. She went through some level of conversion. Now, you could question the conversion. Doesn't matter. Not even going to go into that. Where the conversion came from, how it's valid, doesn't matter. If she's a convert, she cannot be a Jew. There are certain people who can't be Jews. Someone who's an Amaleki, an Amalekite, if we knew it was Amalekite today. Can they become a Jew? Torah tells me no. We don't allow them to convert. Right? A Moabite can't convert. So, okay, what are you screaming about? Who cares? How is it relevant to us? Who comes out of Ruth? Is King David. If she's not Jewish, he's not Jewish. Future redeemer of the Jewish people is a goy. Is a non-Jew. We're waiting for the coming of the Messiah. Us Jews, the Christians will say, fine. I don't care how he goes up to King David. I don't care if there's a discrepancy in history. He goes to King David, but he's not Jewish. A Jewish redeemer all throughout Tanakh. I can bring you myriad number of verses that the future Jewish Messiah comes from King David, comes from the Davidic line. So now if you think I'm blowing smoke about the Noahides, answer me that question. Send me an email. Send me Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, Rabbi Chaim Coffman, gmail.com. You give me an answer. Don't tell me we're crazy. Don't tell me the Jews are nuts. Don't tell me it's all made up. Right? And the Noahides are all made up. Don't give me any of these answers. Give me an answer that explains why King David is Jewish. And why the future Redeemer comes from Ruth, who's not Jewish, according to this. Who can never convert. No future Redeemer of the Jewish people. Now, you have to ask. Well, isn't King David being Jewish pretty crucial to Jewish redemption? I would think it's pretty crucial. According to the Christians, going back to King David is pretty crucial. JC himself was a Jew. So fine, they have a lot of historical inaccuracies. Now, someone wanted to answer, I'll just be fair, that there are some verses in Isaiah that may show that as long as I keep Shabbos, I can be a Jew, but that's not what it means. It's not totally not what it means, because there's an obvious question, and that if you go to Exodus chapter 20, where God gives the Torah, who does he give? When he goes to the 10 Commandments, one of the 10 Commandments is the keeping of Shabbos. He didn't give that to the non-Jews. And Isaiah cannot contradict what Moshe Rabbeinu says. Because the Torah says you can't add or subtract. I don't care if you want to tell me the rabbis are adding and subtracting. Irrelevant. Totally irrelevant to the question. So if you want to throw the rabbis out, and you want to say they're nothing and we're thieves and we're all this, where does the future Messiah come from? If he's not a Jew. If King David, God forbid, is not a Jew, he's not a Jew, then how can Jewish people redeem from someone from the Davidic line? Checkmate. I know the answer. I'm not giving the answer.
I'm going to have to ponder this for a while, Rabbi.
I'm not going to give the answer. Another answer someone gave, right, same person gave, is, well, if I do things in my heart, that's good enough. That's not good enough. Conversion by myself. I say I want to become a Jew. Irrelevant. The Torah tells me she can't convert. It doesn't matter what you think in your heart. What you think in your heart is irrelevant. What matters is, am I a Jew? Did I go through the process or not? She can never go through the process. Then someone's going to say, how do I know King David's supposed to be Jewish? Well, isn't one of the 13 principles that we have to believe in the future coming of the Messiah? Where's the Messiah come from? Everybody knows, from the Davidic line. He's got to be part of the Davidic line. No one argues that. I mean, you want to argue that, go ahead. But no one's going to argue that bring you 50 verses to show you why it's not true. Right? That's not really the point. So I want an answer. I don't want to be told this is made up. I don't want to be told we're a bunch of thieves, you anti-Semite. I don't want to be told any of these things. I want an answer. I want an answer where the Jewish Messiah from King David and prove to me he's Jewish. According to the Torah, and this is a very good example, according to the Torah, she could never convert. How could she marry Boaz? Boaz was the greatest of that generation. She marries Boaz, clear at the end of the book. How could he marry a non-Jew? She's considered Jewish. How can she be considered Jewish? She's a Moabite. A Moabite can never convert. So there's got to be something somewhere. I don't know. There's a direct contradiction. But it's not just a direct contradiction. This is the future of the Jewish people. We're living in the Messianic era right now. Everybody agrees. The Messiah is around the corner. Whenever that happens, it happens. But everyone agrees. This is the Messianic era. If this is a Messianic era, King David's not Jewish, my language, game over. Because the question doesn't get off the ground. Where do you have a Jewish Redeemer? You can say, maybe it's not King David. Can't say that. Right? And King David can't be a non-Jew. There's no possible way. He has to come from a Jew. That's why he's a Jewish Redeemer. He's going to reveal himself. Elijah the prophet is going to say who the Messiah is. Right? It's going to be right next to him. This is the future Messiah right here. This is who he is. Is Elijah a non-Jew? Not a non-Jew. He's certainly a Jew. Full flesh and blood. He'll come back. Right? The prophet tells us. So he's going to bring back another Jew. And that Jew is going to have to come from the Davidic line. And if the Davidic line isn't Jewish, then what are we talking about? Checkmate. Now, why do I say checkmate? Because you're not going to have an answer. And I have an answer. You know why I have an answer?
And you're not going to tell us, right?
I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I have an answer because of what the rabbis tell us. And this clearly shows why you need interpretation, because this will throw the world, the Jewish world, 100% on its head if we don't find some level of permissibility to say she's allowed to convert. Because according to what the Torah says, it says Moabite. It doesn't say Moabitess. Moabite in general. No Moabite. Don't give me that answer. No Moabite. No Moabite means no Moabite. Nobody. Not a man, not a woman. So what do you do about Ruth? And what do you do about future redemption of the Jewish people? That is the question for today.
Wow. Well, I've got to really ponder this one, Rabbi. Yeah, it's a very, very, very valid point that I think the world needs to wake up to, especially the God TV people. I don't know what else to say. I think you've got me a little stumped and maybe miffed, and I'm going to even have to review this myself. So, we've reached our time for today. Have you got any closing words? Because I'm going to have to actually review this, and I encourage everybody out there to share this, especially the last 15, 20 minutes here, because Rabbi's on to something that I think the entire world needs to contemplate, swallow, and digest, and really come up with a legitimate answer.
Because if you don't have an answer, and you have to rely on the rabbis, and you can't, then just either admit you pick and choose, or you have to say that the rabbis are legitimate. There is no, you can tell me, wow, they added a lot of laws, they made things more difficult, but that's not adding or subtracting. They're preserving. Right? There's a big difference. People have an issue with that. Adding and subtracting means I add on to the mitzvahs. I'm not adding to a mitzvah if I'm trying to preserve it to make sure you don't transgress something worse. A Torah prohibition. That's not adding. Right? If I cut off one of my sitzes, that's subtracting. Right? So that's preservation. I mean, there are many other things, but I gave two examples. Right? One example is you can never read the Torah without the rabbis. That everyone has to agree on. that the Masoretic text is based on the vowels.
100%, Rabbi.
Right. So you have to rely on the rabbis for something. So either you tell me, okay, I'll rely on them for that, but nothing else. But they're not allowed to make up things. They're not allowed to change things. They're not allowed, whatever. Right. This is something that goes to the core of future Jewish redemption. This is not just preservation of Shabbos, right? This is what we're living in right now. And I just knocked it out. I just knocked it out of the park because he doesn't exist. He won't exist. Now you're going to ask me, how do I know? How do I know it's supposed to be a Jewish Messiah? Come on. You got to do better than that, right? It doesn't matter what's in your heart, right? It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if you think it's too hard. That's not an argument. That is not an argument that Jewish law that we have to serve and that we have to keep, right? That's Bush League at best, right? You got to tell me why. You got to tell me why what they say isn't true. But I could give you 10 different examples, and you could knock them off. You can knock them off by different things, but it doesn't make sense because 80% of the Torah, there's no definition.
Wow.
Torah says, one example, you have to sit in the sukkah for 7 days. You know what a sukkah is? You have to sit in the booth. You think it's a hammock? Someone else thinks it's a teepee? Someone thinks it's an igloo? What is it? Don't murder. I gave examples.
Right.
There are multiple questions we can ask on all these things. We don't have answers. So show me a system again. Show me a system you can have all the answers to all these questions and pass it down 60% of the time. And the answer is it doesn't exist except within Orthodox Judaism. That's it.
Wow.
You think it's too hard. You think it's this. You think it doesn't matter. You got to bring proof against it. I'm not going to listen to the rabbis. Well, on this one, you're going to. Because this one, you have no choice. Because this is future redemption. Right? So you got to say someone's going to come along somewhere else. It has to come from the Davidic line.
Yeah.
There is no Davidic line if he's a non-Jew. What do you do with that? So I have an answer. Right? It's a rabbinic answer. So we'll leave you hanging.
All right, Rabbi. I mean, there's a lot there. I'm going to have to play with this like a Rubik's Cube and go over it and turn it and twist it and look at it. And
you better let your soundboard calm down. I was just on fire.
You were, but we've stayed Coffman proof thus far. But okay, I'm miffed. I'm miffed. My computer stood, but I'm miffed. So I need to digest this myself.
Okay, very good.
So, Rabbi, I think we should check out for today, folks. You can catch Rabbi on his website, orthodoxconversion.com. You can find him on YouTube. You can find him on Facebook. He's all over social media. I so appreciate him sharing with us the ethics of the fathers, but even today, sharing more this deep, deep, deep question that only the rabbis can answer. And I look forward to more. So, Rabbi, are we tentatively on for next week? Hashem willing?
100%. Yeah, next week will be the end of be 2 days for Shavuos and Shabbos, but we should be good.
We'll be jumping into Mishna 114?
Yeah, we'll hit 114 and then we'll see if we go further. Probably not, but we'll hit 114.
Well, I'm looking forward to 114 specifically, but more so, I'm going to have to find some time to review this one and digest it. So, folks, share it out there on social media, on Facebook and YouTube. We want to thank you all for coming out. It's nice to see some new people. We even had people, believe it or not, Rabbi, we had people live tonight from Dubai. We still got our good compliment that shows up from Germany and a few other names I'm not familiar with. So it's always exciting to see this. Rabbi Coffman, thank you so much from Israel sharing with us Pirkei Avos, the ethics of the fathers. So till next week, folks, have a wonderful, wonderful week.